One. I'd like to call to order the Monday, January 25th, 2021 Pinole Planning Commission. If we all rise, or just not rise, but just recite this, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we got to work on our synchronization on that. Mr. Hannum, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Benzuli.
Here.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Present.
Commissioner Wong. He's absent and he's excused. He's ill tonight. Vice Chair Flashman.
Here.
Chair Current.
Here.
Okay, we do have 4 members tonight, so we can act at least on the first couple of items regarding the meeting minutes, as well as the item E1. However, E2, when we get to that item, we'll have to make some arrangements because we won't have a quorum on that item.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention the bulletin about due to the state of California's declaration of emergency, this meeting's being held pursuant to the authorization from Governor Newsom's executive orders. City Council and Commission meetings are no longer open to in-person attendance. And as you see on the screen here, if you have any comments, either for citizens to be heard or any of the hearings that we have later on, submit your comments by email to dhanham@ci.pinole.ca.us. That's dhanham@ci.pinole.ca.us. Okay. First item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. The public may address the Planning Commission on items that are within its jurisdiction and not otherwise listed on the agenda. Planning commissioners may discuss the matter brought to their attention, but by state law, the Ralph M. Brown Act, action must be deferred to a future meeting. Time allowed 5 minutes each. And again, if you have any comments, submit them to dhanham@ci.pinole.ca.us. Mr. Hannum, do we have any citizens to be heard?
Yes, we have one item, Mr. Chair, from Rafael Menes.
Okay.
And his comments are, hi, David, here are my comments for citizens to be heard. Greetings, Planning Commissioner, staff, and members of the public. I'm writing today to inform the public that there is an active application process for Planning Commission vacancies. You can find more information and he listed the City of Pinole website. The filing period will close on February 11th. I have applied and I encourage others to apply as well. There are multiple vacancies and the commission would benefit from a further diversity of backgrounds and skill sets. Thank you.
Great. And I applaud Raphael for saying that reiterate that I've been on the Planning Commission for a while, and it's something that you can do to make a difference in the community, and we're always, and it's a very rewarding experience. So I would urge anybody that's interested to apply, and if there are more applicants than there are openings, at least you'll be learning a little bit more about the process. And when the next opening happens, you'll be there. So thank you, Raphael, for that comment. Anybody on the commission want to say anything, or any other comments? Okay, no other emails, David?
No.
Okay. Well, we have the consent calendar, but we don't have anything on the consent calendar, so I'm just going to skip over that. D2, we have the meeting minutes, the Planning Commission meeting minutes from December 14th, 2020. Does anybody have any comments on that? I can. I did have one comment that the meeting minutes of last, an item D of the draft minutes on line 38, the minutes, the vote was 4-1. I think it should be 4-0-1 because of Sarah's absence.
Actually, it just should be 4-0.
Okay. All right. Other than that, I have, I don't think I have any other comments. Anybody else have any comments?
No.
I'll entertain a movement to accept in this in a second.
Does Commissioner Benzula make a motion to approve the planning commissioning meeting minutes from December 14th, 2020 as issued with the one amendment on the voting that Chair Current mentioned?
Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Chair, if I could interrupt, there was also one on page 2 with also that had Sarah Flashman as being absent with a 4-1. So I would just say as amended, and we can amend that. If Mr. Benzula, if you want to amend your motion, you just say as amended. We'll include that. We'll include that as part of it.
Throughout the.
Okay.
Yeah, as amended.
So moved. A second.
Second. This is Commissioner Moriarty.
Thank you, Ann. All any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions?
I'm going to be having to abstain because I was not there and I have not watched the video.
Okay, that's not a 4-0. That's not a majority vote, is it?
It
is not. Well, it's not a majority, but it's a majority of the people who.
Yeah. So because it's not a action of the commission that only certain actions require a majority of the quorum, like adopting a resolution or approving a project. So the commission can approve its minutes by just a majority of the quorum rather than a majority of the board.
Okay, we got the legal opinion, so I'll accept that. I don't think we're going to get sued on this.
I agree.
So just to let you know, the record will show that it'll be 3-0-1 with Commissioner Flashman abstaining.
Yeah, and Sarah, just to remind you and all the commissioners that with the availability of the minutes on or the meetings on video at the website, you can watch them there, and even though you didn't attend the meeting, you still have the authority to or the privilege of voting on them, even though you didn't attend the meeting. And I would strongly suggest that for any future commissioners, that if you are absent, that for continuity's sake, it is good to be able to listen to watch the minute, the minutes on the video. Okay. With that, we'll move on to public hearings. And I'm going to read at the beginning of an item. The chair will read the description of that item as stated on the agenda. The city staff will then give a brief presentation of the proposed project. The commission may ask staff questions about the item. For those items listed as public hearings, the chair will open the public hearing and ask the applicant if they wish to make a presentation. Those persons in favor of the project will be given an opportunity to speak, followed by those who are opposed to the project. The applicant will then be given an opportunity for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed and the commission will discuss the item amongst themselves and ask questions of the staff. Commission will then vote to approve, deny, approve in modified form, or continue the matter to a later date for a decision. The chair will announce the commission's decision and advise the audience of the appeal process. Note that no public hearings will begin after 11 p.m. Items still remaining on agenda after 11 p.m. will be held over to the next meeting. Now, just as a comment here before we start, I've been advised by our planning director, David Hannum, that item E2, which concerns the zoning of the municipal code historic preservation overlay for the Old Town, since we only have 4 people and one of our members lives in the area and would have to recuse herself, we will not be making a decision on E2, but we will be opening up the public hearing for those who have comments. And but I just want to make it clear to the public that we will not be acting on that tonight. Okay, with that being said, let's go to item E1, Pinole Square Appian 80 Shopping Center, parcel map 651-21. Request consideration of a parcel map for the purpose of merging 7 parcels into 3 located the Appian 80 Shopping Center at 1201 through 1577 Terry Hills Drive in the CMU district. The project includes the merger of 7 parcels into 3 parcels for the purpose of allowing the applicant to establish lease lines, condominiums, for the suite located on the south end of the property, the Safeway store and fuel station, and for a group of buildings located on the west side of the property. The applicant is AMS Associates Incorporated, 801 Ignacio Valley Road, Suite 220, Walnut Creek, California, 94563. The location, as I mentioned, was at 1201 through 1577 Terra Hills. The APN is 402-282-002, 06, 07, 08, 09, 10, 14, 19, and the planner is David Hannum. And before I turn it over to David, I would like to remind the public that if they do have any comments, that they should be emailing to dhannum@cipinole.ca.us. Thank you. Mr. Hannum.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to correct one thing is that basically what is happening here is we're merging 8 parcels into 1, not 7.
Okay.
The other parcels that are outlined on the map were already parcels that were established way back when, and they're owned by separate property owners, and those properties aren't included. As you can see and I'll get to those. One is the little L1, L2 on the map, and then the other parcel is located the bigger parcel to the south, would be to the south, and then of course the other parcels are not owned by the property owner, the ones on the outside. So I just wanted to verify, just wanted to clarify that. That's all. And basically it would result in basically with 3 parcels for what we would call Pinole Square or the Appian Center. Even though the majority of the center is made up by Mark Goldstone's properties, all the other properties are in the quote Appian 80 or Pinole Square Shopping Center. But this merger only deals with Mark Goldstone's properties. Of course, the Planning Commission is the approving authority on the minor subdivision request, and it's so with that. Going over to the file location, if we go to the site location, just for, I'm sure everyone's familiar with it, but do you have that picture, Dave? Do you have the site?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I know the commission does.
It's on the screen.
Yeah, that's the parcel map, but I'm talking about the site location that shows the buildings and that one. Yeah, thanks, Ann. I just want to show that's what I'm talking about right now. As the commission's aware, the Appian Center, which is now Pinole Square, the commission adopted a new project in September, which will demolish the Safeway and the CVS. Create a new Safeway, new buildings, and new shops along the southern, and then some new shops on the what would be the north side. Just to kind of give the property owner to the north of it is the Terra Hills Drive and the medical center office and some retail commercial. To the west is an existing Terra Hills neighborhood. To the south, of course, is Interstate 80, and to the east is a medical office, Appian Way, and some retail commercial. The site is bounded by Terra Hills to the north and Appian to the east. Surrounding land uses include shopping center to the north, a medical office, which is the Bay Area Laser Cosmetic Surgery Center to the east, and a single-family residential to the west. Of course, I-80 is located approximately 100 feet south of the site. While the topography of the developed portions of the project site are relatively level, the topography in the vicinity of the site slopes to the northwest towards the San Pablo Bay. South of the southern site boundary, the ground surface slopes downward, creating a wide gully between the project site and I-80, which you are all familiar with. Currently, the houses a Safeway store and other commercial properties. In 2020, the City Council, after a review by the Planning Commission, approved an application to redevelopment the project site. The proposed lot merger for tonight will not change or alter previously approved entitlements. So none of those are at bay. None of those conditions are affected. All those conditions are in full force and effect with that original project, including the addition of new commercial structures and a fueling station. So basically, in terms of the analysis of the project, the applicant is proposing to merge a parcel into one. The resulting merger would enable the applicant to lease portions of the parcel for individual commercial spaces within the parcel without the limitations imposed by existing lot lines. And for those of you who don't know, a lot of commercial developers use what are called lease lines, which are basically lines that are created within the development. And they get usually approved by the DRE, which is the Department of Real Estate, as part of their leasing. So they're leasing spaces. The project will propose to maintain the access and shared resource parcels on the site. So everything is shared. Everything is even with the lease lines and all that. Everything will be shared. A reciprocal parking agreement shall also be required as a condition of approval and maintain shared parking access between the parcels. Because these lease lines are considered legal lines, we just want to make sure that we don't lose any of the parking and the cross access to the parking agreement. Cross access for all of the different parcels with all the different parking requirements. A single sign easement is proposed for a possible location of a monument sign because sometimes there's multiple tenants on the sign, so there'll probably be multiple people using the sign and that. So we want to keep a sign easement. The draft condition of approval has been added to ensure that the sign easement be configured to satisfy clear vision requirements, which the signs that are being proposed for the project are basically in the same position as the old signs, except there's just different designs, which those will be approved on a later permit by the city. Let's see. Also, all instruments that implement easements and agreements shall be recorded with the final map. So there's still a final map process that if the commission agrees to approve this map, then the city engineer will sign the final map as part of the municipal code. And section 66474 of the Subdivision Map Act basically dictates kind of if the city or county shall deny a parcel map or parcel map for which a tentative map was not required if it makes any of the following findings. And these are the number of findings that were listed as part of that 66474. After reviewing the findings, A through G, staff has determined that none of these findings can be made and that this map meets the existing standards of the City of Pinole. City of Pinole. Municipal Code Section 16.12040 designates the Planning Commission as the decision-making body for this type of tentative map. As part of the general plan consistency, the subservice sub-area, which is general plan designation for the Appian Way within the 3-corridor specific plan, is intended to maintain and enhance existing land uses while providing land use flexibility to encourage new private investment and additional development. For the Appian Way corridor, a major objective is to maintain and enhance the regional gateway area into the city of Pinole and capitalize on freeway access to upgrade existing developments and attract the desirable mix of commercial and service and residential uses, which this project does. The project helps implement numerous policies within different elements of the general plan, including the community character element, the land use element, the economic development element, circulation element, health and safety and natural resources and open space, and the sustainability element. applicable policies are provided below. So basically, I listed the two major ones within the community character element as well as the land use element. Those were, in terms of this project, those were the major elements that that were needed to be complied with. This project is compatible with the vision of the subsurface area general plan designation, and as no changes in use are being proposed as a part of this project. So this project is not proposing any changes of any of the approvals that you approved back in September, and the council approved in, or that you approved in July, they approved in September. The establishment of access easements on the property and integration of a reciprocal parking agreement as proposed in the draft conditions of approval would establish circulation and parking connections between each of the subdivided parcels that maintain an interconnected site. The zoning of the zoning designation will remain unchanged. The one lot shall maintain the commercial mixed-use zoning designation. And this project does not include changes of use or exterior modifications to the site. As part of the environmental review, this project is categorically exempt per section 15315 minus land divisions of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, and that a division of property in an urbanized area zoned for residential, commercial, or industrial use into four or fewer parcels, when the division is in conformance with the general plan and zoning, no variances or exceptions are required. All services and access to the proposed parcels to local standards are available. And that the parcel was not involved in a division or a larger parcel within the previous 2 years, which it has not. And the parcel is not have an average slope of greater than 20%, which it does not. Based on that analysis and the environmental review, staff recommends that the Planning Commission take the following actions after holding a public hearing: adopt Resolution 21-01, approving tentative map MS 651-21 for the Pinole Square Shopping Center project. With that, I have the resolution and the conditions of approval as Exhibit A, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. The applicant is here if you want to talk to. I think he's online. At least I gave him the Zoom. So
I'm here, Dave.
Okay, thanks, Todd. So the applicant is online if you want to ask any questions. With that, that ends my presentation.
Thank you, David. And again, I'm going to remind the public that if they have any comments, that they should send an email or any to dhanum@ci.pinole.ca.us. Right now, our first order of is to open up the staff, the commissioners, to be able to ask questions to the staff. Are there any questions? Since we have only 3 other people, if you have a question, just speak up. I won't try to call your name out.
No questions.
Okay, I have a question and kind of a comment, which is a question I was going to ask, but I got answered. And that one of the things is that the request talks about establishing lease lines, quote, condominiums for the suite located in the south end of the property. Does that mean residential areas? Is that a holdover from the housing overlay that we have for this property, or is condominiums mean businesses?
It's commercial condominiums.
Okay.
So it doesn't refer to residential.
Okay. And when I first saw this, my comment is, and you can understand why I'm not waiting until the thing is that I was concerned about the parking and reciprocal parking for the 3 remaining parcels. And I'm just kind of emphasizing that there are conditions that assure that those 3 other parcels are not going to be squeezed out in any way or shape or form by either signage or by parking. And I just, I'm kind of bringing it up now just because it was a question I had and I got answered. Okay. If nobody else has any questions.
Actually, this Commissioner Benzo, I have a couple of questions. So going back to the map, so there's the L1 through L7 kind of parcels. So this one is taking 8 existing parcels and merging them into one parcel called Parcel 1, and L2, L3, and the other one is the other.
I think it's like L7.
those are outside of this consolidation.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just the Parcel 1.
Yeah.
And the applicant already owns the land?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
we do.
Okay. And what happens if the applicant does not develop the site and it's been re-divided in this way? What happens to the parcel lines if the site doesn't ever get developed? Not to say it wouldn't, but if it doesn't for some reason.
The property lines would remain. I mean, if we approve the map and the map gets finalized, the parcels will still exist, and they'll still operate in a manner that they're existing right now. Okay. Because I think there is, and Ty can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there still is an agreement between those parcels with parking and that. I'm not positive, but I wanted to make sure we had a condition in there, but I think there already is one for cross access through all
Dave,
the parcels.
you're correct. There's already a co-ownership agreement that covers parking.
Right. So everybody's still covered.
And are there any restrictions to preventing the subdivision of the parcel? I mean, there's the lease lines, which sounds more of just a lease agreement, but are there restrictions to preventing the subdivision of the parcel later on back to something else? Or is that if it had to get subdivided again, it would come back to the planning commission again?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And then the last question I had was on the EIR. Didn't quite get the language on why an EIR was exempt, or the application was exempt from the EIR process.
It's exempt from CEQA. CEQA has, if you look at the, I'll pull up on section 15, the CEQA allows for both statutory and categorical exemptions. And so what happens is that as we start reviewing these projects, we look at those exemptions to see if a project is exempt. Can we exempt it from CEQA? And based on 15 per section 15315 of California Environmental Quality Act, we can exempt this because for one, the area is properly zoned and it's residential, commercial, industrial use into 4 or fewer parcels. So we're actually, because we're merging the parcels, not creating more than those parcels, then that's why we can exempt it. Now, if they were subdivided with the 7 parcels, if they were like, let's say they wanted to subdivide into another 4 parcels, then I wouldn't be able to use that exemption. We would have to do a full initial study and either do a mitigated negative declaration or either neg deck, mitigated neg deck, or if it rose to the level of an environmental impact report, which in this case it probably wouldn't, but we definitely have to. We would be required to rise if we went more than 4 parcels above what they already have. Okay. Cool. So, and they're not asking for any variances. They're not asking for any exceptions, and all of the services are already to the parcels. So, being that this is an existing parcel, all the water sewer is already there. So it serves. So by doing that, it allows us to be able to exempt this project from CEQA.
Okay, great. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before I open up the public hearing? Hearing none, I'm opening up the public hearing. Mr. Hannum, do we have any of the public who wish to speak on this?
At this point, I don't have anybody from the outside. We do have from Jessica Delgado has a comment. As homeowners on Alberton Circle and watching the live stream information, are there going to be residential condominiums added to the site? The letter we received discussed that. No, there will be no residential condominiums added to the site at this point with this project. So if you're listening, Jessica, it won't be. This just all has to do with the commercial project that was approved. We include the word residential because the MAP Act says either commercial, residential, or industrial. So, but in this case, because the project is commercial, it's commercial condominiums with the existing buildings that were approved back in September of 2020. So So if you have any other questions, I can help you answer those.
Okay, since I had the same question, I applaud her for coming up with that question. Any other comments?
That's the only comment on this item.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Because this is the time to ask.
This is Commissioner Moriarty, and so my question is that, well, first of all, it's helpful, Mr. Hannum, if the idea of condominiums in most of our minds brings up residential condominiums.
Yeah.
And the thought of that versus commercial condominiums, when you clarified that answered one of my questions. So, okay. So if we're looking at the parcel map, the parcel that is parallel with Interstate 80, so the thought is perhaps to develop along the very southern border of this parcel, to develop commercial condos at that point as well.
Well, no. What it does, Ann? Okay, what it does is it allows for the original building that you approved back in September. Okay, it listed about 6 or 7 suites. It had the minor anchor and it had the additional shops. What the commercial condominiums do is allows the developer to, over the course of time, either set those lines into what a tenant is leasing. So, for example, if a tenant comes in and is leasing 3 segments of that building, they can come in and do a lease line on those three buildings, and then they have access to those 3 buildings. If then those 3 then that tenant moves out, and let's say 2 new tenants move in, and they split it back up into 2 or 3 buildings, then they would do lease lines because they're leasing that space. If I'm making it clear. Yeah. So if you understand, so basically the lease lines allows the developer or the property owner to define what the tenant wants to use, and then be able to determine, what they're leasing, and so that's what they have.
Great. So that the original project is as is, like you said before. So we're not talking about adding potentially any other new buildings on it. Got it. Okay. That clarifies for me. I'm fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do any other commissioners have questions for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions kind of following up on the project. I don't know if I can ask those.
Well, now's the time to do it.
Okay.
Even though it might have been to the staff, I mean,
well, is this, you mean for the original project that was approved back in November?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that, but it's already been been approved, and that kind of stuff.
So why I'm asking about it is because for the resolutions, there's a condition around, where is it? I apologize. Around public health, and that it doesn't impact public health. And my primary concerns around this project were around public health.
Right, but this project is regarding the actual merging the parcels. It has nothing to do with either increasing or decreasing the square footage of the project. It has no. It doesn't have any. It doesn't have any impact on the size of the buildings, nor like the parking. That's all of those have been considered. So that's why in this case it wouldn't affect public health, because we're just merging parcels together. It's not affecting the rest of the parcel. It's not the project. I'm sorry. It's not affecting the project.
It's not impacting the uses on the parcel.
Yeah, the uses on the property.
Okay. So when it says that the use or the merging I'm trying to find it. I apologize. Let's see. Why don't you guys come back to me and I'll find the exact wording I was looking at in terms of public health. And then I will, okay, that the design of the subdivision or type of improvements is likely to cause serious public health problems. For the types of improvements, does that mean the project itself?
No.
Sarah, could you tell us where you are, please?
Yes, absolutely. It's on page 3. So at the very bottom, a legislative body or a city or county shall deny approval of a tentative map or parcel in which the tentative map was not required if it makes the following findings, and then F.
Great, thank you.
So Commissioner Flashman, there are no improvements as part of this subdivision. Sometimes when there are subdivision, like a residential subdivision or any type of subdivision, you might require them to put in roads or something, you make lots on either side, and those would be improvements. The subdivision improvements would be the roads. Here, the concerns you have aren't related to any improvements. They're related to just the improvements to the property, but not as a result of the subdivision or the merger.
Got it. Thank you so much for clarifying that. And in that case, I don't really have any questions.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant? If not, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners for discussion and recommendations. Again, since we have such a small group, if there's somebody who has any comments, feel free to speak.
This is Commissioner Moriarty, and my question is just to us as a body, if we see anything negative, any potential negatives to this that I'm not seeing?
Well, to me, it's just an administrative
Right.
thing. It's taking the 8 existing parcels and combining them to one. So, I don't think we should be reading too much into this resolution here.
Right. That's my point. I mean, is my question is do we see anything negative, any potential negative to this? I mean, I don't. So if nobody else does, then that answers my question, just to us.
Yeah, and it sounds like the project was approved already from an entitlement standpoint. So this is kind of like a legal step they have to go through to make the parcel happen, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I appreciate Commissioner Benzuli, you bringing up what if it doesn't get built. And I think if this was a project that wasn't already there, that would be something to consider. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? I certainly would entertain a motion. Okay.
This Commissioner Benzuli, a motion to approve the Pinole Square Appian 80 Shopping Center parcel map 651-21, merging 8 parcels into the one as under item E1 for approval.
Thank you, Adam. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? I'll call the motion. Should we make a roll call or just I'll vote at once?
We should do a roll
Okay, let's do a roll.
Okay. Commissioner Benzuli,
Aye.
Commissioner Moriarty,
Aye.
Vice Chair Flashman,
Aye.
Chair Current.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
4-0. Thank you, and thank you to the applicant for
Okay,
and now you can go watch Jeopardy.
thank you very much.
Chair, can you just read the appeal language, just in case there's someone out there who wants to appeal this decision?
Oh yes, I will do that. Yes, thank you for reminding me, Alex. Note, if you challenge a decision of the commission regarding a project, let me go back to, okay, any person may appeal an action of the planning commission or the planning manager by filing an appeal with the city clerk in writing within 10 days of such action. Following a public hearing, the city council may act to confirm, modify, or reverse the action of the planning commission, and the planning commission may act to confirm, modify, or reverse the action of the planning manager. The cost of appeal is $500 and a minimum $2,500 deposit fee. Note, if you challenge a decision of the commission regarding a project in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised in the public hearing or in writing delivered to the city of Pinole at or prior to the public hearing. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to the next item on the hearing. And I mentioned earlier that I think Commissioner Flashman, you need to recuse yourself.
Go ahead, Alex.
So, Chair, there are actually two commissioners who would need to recuse themselves.
Oh, great.
Flashman and Moriarty, because of the proximity of their homes to the proposed overlay zone. If normally, if it was only if Commissioner Wong was here, then there's a process to bring one of them back in to reach a quorum of 4, but by randomly selecting one of them to participate. But because because Simon's not here, that process isn't allowed. Unfortunately, it's not allowed to make up for someone who's absent. So because there's not a quorum of people who can participate, we will just continue this matter automatically till the next meeting, and post a notice about that. If I don't know, Dave can let us know if there's any comments that were submitted, and we can read those for the public, but we should also keep those for the next meeting as well, because we can't even open the public hearing really, because there's not a quorum to do that. But we could just read the comments for the commission's knowledge, if there are any.
Okay, that's unfortunate. This seems to be very crippling to the planning process when we're dealing with a broad resolution, like, covering a broad area, that people who actually live near or by the affected area are on the commission not be able to participate, because I think that the nexus between the planning process we're going here and the conflict of interest, I personally don't see it, but I know that's the law. But I just think it's very, very unfortunate, because it seems like it's a very crippling of impact on the planning process.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sharon. I would just add 2 things. That one, I think it's especially because it's felt more because there are 2 vacancies on the commission right now.
Yeah.
And to your point about sort of the impact, there is a provision that allows commissioners to participate if they have a conflict, if the decision would affect sort of the public generally, and that's defined in the law as basically 15% of residences in the city. And although we sort of have bad luck that this particular ordinance would impact 2 commissioners here, but it's actually pretty far below that 15% threshold if you sort of count out approximately how many residences there are in the city and how many were impacted here. But so, that's how, and that exception is how, the general plan or things like that are, commissioners can participate in that, even though it impacts sort of huge swaths of the city. But unfortunately, this is actually a relatively small area. We just sort of have bad luck, I suppose, for lack of a better phrasing of where,
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder how, when we approved the special planning areas, the Old Town Special Planning Area, it seems to me that we might have, there might have been an issue for recusing people that lived in the area, and I don't recall that happening. And so,
well, even in that case, like the 3 corridors specifically, each one of those is even sort of a bigger area than this area too. So like it may have reached that 15% threshold there.
Well, it seems like the outline of this, the historic area, it looked to me like it kind of just used the Old Town SPA as its boundary. But you're our legal advice, and we need to take it. But I just think that it's potentially crippling, and not to our planning process, but to other jurisdictions too. If they so happen to have a lot of their planning commissions from a certain area rather than spread around the jurisdiction. So I guess that's a consideration when selecting planning commissioners by the city councilors. They almost have to make sure that there is a diversity in location. Okay, that's just my comment. So I'm not exactly sure how we proceed here, because I had some comments on this, but I guess I need to hold those for, can I mention them since we do have?
I would just hold them, Chair, because you'll have to just re-mention them when there is sort of a public hearing. We won't, the minutes here won't reflect that anything happened. They'll reflect this, but there won't be any hearing that took place.
Okay, so I think the thing here is if there's any comments from the public, we'll just allow Mr. Hannum to read them into the records, and the rest of the commissioners will just remain silent. And I guess we don't even need recusal by, the physical recusal by Commissioners Moriarty or Commissioners Flashman, since there's nothing to influence this here. Do we have any comments, David, on this?
Yes, we have one comment, Mr. Chair, from Rafael Menes. Hello, here are my comments for items E2, zoning code amendment. I have 2 comments on this item, one technical and one broader. The technical one is that there's a typo in the proposed ordinance. Exhibits A 17.28.060B reads Old Own Told Preservation Design Guidelines, and it probably should read Old Town Design Guidelines to be compatible with 17.28060A. The second comment is in regards to the designation process as described in 17.28040. Will private citizens be able to petition the Planning Commission, zoning administrator, or council to add the HPO designation to a property or a group of properties? The cultural resources definition in 17.28.020 is broad, and it seems as though much of the city could fall under at least one of its subheadings. So that was a comment from Mr. Menes.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
All right. With that, I guess I haven't opened anything, so we'll just move on to the next item on the agenda, which I have now kind of misplaced. And I was ready to do some gabbling there, and I'm kind of disappointed I couldn't.
Through the chair,
yes.
Is it possible to get a printout of the public comment? Are we allowed to receive a printout of the public comment?
Yeah, I mean, I can put them in the minutes. I mean, I can do it that way. I mean,
yeah, that's great. I mean, obviously not the typo, but the second, second.
I'd have to give you the whole comment, but yeah, I can do that. Okay. I can include those in the minutes, so that way at least you have them.
Yeah.
Or
That'd
you
be
can
helpful.
just have a link or something like that. Okay. All right, so we'll move on. And item F is old business. We have none. G, we have new business. We have none. And now what that brings us to H, the city planners commissioners report, verbal updates on projects. And again, thank you for sending us a list of the status of the projects.
If there are any that you want to talk about, I'll be happy to answer any of those. The only real updates I have on, we do have one project that's in application right now for 2801 Pinole Valley Road. And so I will be introducing him the environmental contract to get the environmental started, and then we'll be moving forward with that. So hopefully we'll be seeing that item in front of you guys in the next probably 3 or 4 months. So. And
what is that?
That is it's a 29 unit apartment complex with an expansion of a 10,000, 15,000 square foot addition to an existing commercial property. So it's a mixed use property within a commercial mixed use zone, which actually is kind of neat how that works. So.
And that's located where?
At 2801 Pinole Valley Road.
If it's a commercial enterprise, what is it?
It's just an expansion of a business. Expansion of the complex, as well as an addition of 29 units, residential units. Okay, so it's not a business, just it's already an existing. Part of it is, yes. Part of it is, yeah. Okay, I guess I can Google it and find out. Yeah. Okay. Like being commissioner is so much easier with having smartphones and Google's available. Used to have to go visit these sites and figure out what's going on. We still have to, I guess, but right. Are there any other projects that are coming down the pike? Yeah, I mean, we're working with some applicants on a project located at 811 San Pablo. We're working with an applicant there, a potential applicant. I really can't talk too much about it because we don't have an application. We are still working with we're still working with a project proponent for the old hospital site, looking at a project there. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. And we're still working with a project proponent for another site on San Pablo near Roble and Encina, right in that area. Mm-hmm. And we are still working with another applicant potential applicant in response to Pinole Vista, the old Kmart. So we're still working with that project proponent. So it looks like we're finalizing a lot of things, working with them, and so hopefully they'll be submitting applications here in the next month. But all of them have said that they're coming. They'll be next month in February. So we could have major projects coming in February to get things moving for the new year. So.
Well, we may want to consider if we're overwhelmed, but we might want to consider having more than one meeting in February or even March.
Well, no, that's just for the applicant. The meetings, okay. the items won't be in front of you until sometime in August, September. So okay, yeah, so there'll be time, and we're also going to be doing some public outreach as well. Some of those projects based on the size and based on what they're proposing. So there'll be some community outreach as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Do any of the commissioners have any comments that they would like to make?
The only comment I would love to make is in terms of we were talking about community outreach, mm-hmm. especially with the Doctors Hospital, the Kmart, and some of the bigger projects. Mm-hmm. I wonder about doing a public walkthrough or something on the site. I know it's kind of hard with COVID, but if we're talking about August, September, then we might be able to do something like that. And I think that might be a way of getting more people interested to kind of walk people through what they're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we could, if it's through the public outreach process, if we wanted to have a meeting at the site, or just have all of the Well, I mean, most of the public outreach would be happening in the beginning of the project. So I don't know how much access we're going to have to properties. I mean, if we keep people 6 people apart, masks and all that kind of stuff, because those usually don't. The community outreach process usually doesn't start until we deem the application complete. So once it's complete, then we have a complete application. Then we would then set up the community outreach for whatever, and we can do it a lot of different ways. I mean, we can either we'd have it at like a senior center with boards and all that. We can have it at the site. We can have it, wherever the commission or staff would work with the applicant and the commission to set that up. I wouldn't necessarily call it a planning commission meeting, only because if I do, then I've got to notice it, and I've got to notice there's an offsite meeting and all that. So it would be more like a community workshop. But of course, the planning commission would be invited per se, or if the commission if they wanted to be in control of all that, we could take a look at doing something of that nature where you have a special meeting and it's a meeting. But I would only recommend that is if it was closer to you were actually looking at the project itself and wanting to approve the project, and not necessarily a community where you've already done the community outreach. We've put all the stuff together, and now we're at the final project point. So because it really wouldn't be beneficial to do all of that work, then just start the community outreach process all over. I'd want to do it through the public hearing process at that point, which we could have, or at least have be an official planning commission meeting at the site. And I mean, I've done that before with other commissions. But in most cases, we'd have to do like either the whole meeting there, or it'd have to be in the afternoon when everybody could get there. I mean, it would be, I mean, the dynamics, we can make it happen, but I'm just saying that usually the community outreach we'll do earlier in the process, and we'll try to do that maybe on a weekend or something like that, where people can get out there and take a look at it and do something like that, and hopefully get comments from the community that we can include as part of the staff report, so that when it comes to the commission, this is what the community looked at, this is what we looked at, this is what, and then you have a better idea of how that works. Yeah. I'm sorry, just one more thing. If the commission wants to do a site visit with the commission, of course, we have to agendize it and all that, but it would be a specific, you wanting to go to see the site, and you can do that as a commission. And then what would happen is we would then continue that meeting to the next meeting, so that you could, based on that, you could do that. But you have the ability as commissioners to go out and look at the site anytime you want with the plans and do all that and make your notes and all that too. So you have the ability to do that. So however you guys want to do it.
Yeah, I think in the past when we've had site visits, we did it without the commissioners, just to get around the Brown Act issues, where maybe the chair would be going and city staff, but we tried not to have a quorum.
Well, the other thing that what I'll probably be instituting with these bigger projects as well is I'll include the design review board as well. So as we were going through this process, normally after, I usually want to bring them in after we do all the public outreach. So at least it kind of gives the commissioners of what happened at the community outreach, even though you'll probably all be there, but at least give you a chance to comment on the project prior to it going through its paces through the rest of the analysis.
Thank you, David. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments?
I have some, but I never know if it should go here or under communications.
I'm kind of combining the two, if you haven't noticed that.
We'll combine the two. Okay, here you go. Here's my list, as always.
No problem.
So first of all, I'm just asking Mr. Hannon for an update on the landscape plan for Pinole Square. Of course, we had him here. I could have asked him then.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We are. I'm working with their landscape right now, guy right now. When they submit for their building permit, which I'm under the understanding that they're getting closer to submit, So at that point, they're going to be submitting their landscape plan to see, the more native trees when they submit for their building permit. So I'm hopefully I was going to follow up with Todd on that tomorrow anyway, so that he can give me a better idea of when they're going to submit. Because about 2 months ago, they told me late January, early February. Now we're getting into late January, early February. So we need to follow up on where that. And they're coming in with the Safeway first. And so, but I told them that I want the landscape plan with that plan. So, so we should. I'll follow up on that.
That's great. Thank you. It's just one of those things that, we make requests and have conditions, and then make sure we follow through there. Okay, good. Then kind of along with that though, in our last meeting, you were going to find out if we could find out how much funds were in the tree mitigation fund. If there was anything.
I found out a whole bunch about that stuff.
Actually, you got $210 of my money too.
Now, the city, at this point, the city has not established the tree mitigation fund. However, it does have what is called the tree maintenance fund, which is underneath the public works budget. At this point, if we were to take in money for tree mitigation, we would establish that fund. We would establish that fund specifically for tree mitigation. So the maintenance fund is a yearly budgetary item that we go out and we maintain trees, or we cut trees down and that kind of stuff, add trees, subtract trees. So it's more of a budget item for public works. However, if when we talk about tree mitigation, we probably would have to establish that fund. Which is something we would do with the council to establish the fund, or I think it's just a policy we would add to the budget, and then they would pay into that fund. So
what happened then with the trees? I thought the understanding was that there were at the ophthalmologist building on Pinole Valley Road that there was going to be money put into a tree, what we understood as tree mitigation fund.
Right.
So trees. So that's just going to go into a tree maintenance fund, and then it'll
It would go into. We would establish the fund for that money to go in. However, and I'm glad you brought up the ophthalmology center. Is they resubmitted a landscape plan with approximately about 8 or 9 additional trees, and so we're going through that. I'm going through that with them right now. It was about 9 trees. I didn't, and just to, throw it out there, I mean, they had like 7 Italian cypress. I told them that they need to come back with more native trees than that. I don't need Italian cypresses all over the property. So they're working on that right now. So they're looking at planting trees. So at this point, I don't think we'll have necessarily mitigation fees with them, because they're going to plant the number of required trees that they're required for mitigation of taking down the trees that they did. Mm-hmm. So because they took down 4 trees, we required a 2-to-1 ratio. That's 8 trees, and they're looking to put in 9 or 10. They have the ability to put about between 8 and 10 on the site. So now it's just a matter of working with them on the species to make sure that we get more color, and we get more that kind of stuff in terms of blocking the building and shielding the building. So they have submitted a plan. However, I've kind of doctored it up in terms of what I think we need. And Dr. Lee has been working very well with me. I've got a good working relationship with Dr. Lee. So we're working on that to get that done. The building will not be finalized until that. Just to let you know, as commissioners, the building will not be finalized until we settle on that landscape plan. So
are the trees going to be in front, or are they going to be doing any shielding?
Yeah, I mean, some of it will shield. Some of it will shield because depending on what they would. I mean, if you look at the way the building, where those trees were and where the buildings were, it mostly shielded as you're going up Pinole, as you're going on Pinole Valley Road towards Tenet. That way, that's where the shielding would have been until you got to the corner of Tenet and Pinole Valley Road, and right at that intersection next to the school. However, there are going to be some trees that kind of wrap around on that corner. You can't really tell because the fence is there right now, so it blocks some of the actual landscape area that will be landscaped because the fence is back off of the sidewalk by about 5 feet or so. And so all that area will be landscaped. So there'll be some trees there as well as trees coming up as you're coming up Pinole Valley Road. I mean, it probably in the beginning, it won't block the building, but as the trees grow, and that's why we were looking at some different species so that there would be better canopies than just the Italian cypresses that are coming in. The canopies get a little bigger, more colorful, and they kind of do more of a blocking of the building. But, you know, it'll take some years for it to grow. That's why we're requiring like 15 to 36 inch box trees, more mature trees, so they grow a little faster. And so they're not just these little 5-gallon trees that, you know, take 10 years to grow, or just these little skinny trees and just a row of Italian cypress. That's not going to work at that location. So
Yes.
So can we get back to the tree mitigation fund then?
Sure.
So I mean, obviously then maybe there's a way that it's been worked out here for this.
Right.
But for the future, so what I understand you saying is that there is no tree mitigation fund.
No.
And that it needs to be established. And so haven't we had in the past, say with the Sprouts project, that there was mitigation that was taken care of there, but I haven't seen anything as to how
no, the mitigate, they planted their landscape plan. Their landscape plan required so many amount of trees, and they planted that amount of trees. I mean, depending on, because in the code we do have a landscape coverage, and there are landscape requirements that they meet, that they have to meet per municipal code. And normally that's when the mitigation fund comes into play. If they can't meet the city's requirement of trees or landscaping or that regard, then what they would do is then pay into a mitigation fee and plan what they're going to plant, and then we would then establish that fee.
But so part of this was Mr. Hannum, regarding the creek. That they could not, that the original idea was that there would be trees planted along the creek on the other, you know, right on the other side of the fence, but still on their property. Right. But flood control district would not allow that because of the flood control. So speaking with the city engineer, there were going to be other plans then either for mitigation or for other plans where native trees would be planted in Pinole along the creek at another place or someplace else.
Right. So what would happen is then if for whatever reason flood control, we can't plant those trees, at that point we would establish a mitigation fund and they would pay into that fund. But I don't, this process was before I got here, so I'm not quite sure when all that's supposed to take place. So that's something I'd have to follow up with the city engineer. But I have heard of that. I know they're trying. We're working with them to redo some of the trail, at least on their that's on their property.
They did redo the trail. The trail. I mean, the trail is actually in good shape now. So they followed up with that. It's just the plans. Right.
Now it's just a matter of getting them to. I'll have to follow up with Tamara on that one. I'm not quite sure where we are with that. But if they couldn't plant trees there that they said they would, or as part of the conditions of their project, then they would establish that mitigation fund and put money in it.
Okay. So could you follow up with that for our next meeting, just as an update? That would be helpful. I mean, just some of these things, you're right. I mean, with the transitions and such, you know, we've lost quite a bit. And then of course with our planning commission changing. So thank you very much, Mr. Hannum. Another question is that we had talked about getting access to, or just information on the housing legislation that we would be considering coming up. And I know that the chair suggested going to the League of California Cities, and I went there, and it's just really hard to navigate through what kinds of legislation would affect us as a small town. I mean, there are, you know, all sorts of things, and I'm not quite sure where to direct my energies in seeking, you know, what I need to know about. So if it would be possible to have a, I don't know.
Agenda item.
Either an agenda, yeah, that might be good, about what legislation we need to be considering, or if we could just be pointed towards certain of those assembly bills so that we know what's important for us, and especially if we have some of these big projects coming up.
Yeah, I'll let Alex handle those, and maybe we can get an item and do maybe a little workshop or something with those.
Yeah, and so the commission knows, me and Dave had discussed doing that in February, so I don't know if maybe it depends on what the agenda, now that this one item got pushed, I don't know, depending what else is on there, maybe we need another meeting, or maybe it will be fine, and if those are the only two items. But I certainly have some presentations already that I've done before for other jurisdictions, sort of like the 3 or 4 bills of the past few years that are important to know about. There's always new legislation that's proposed, but sort of not worth thinking about until because they propose so many things, you waste your energy and then they don't pass, or they pass and completely different. But there's certainly been 3 or 4 major bills in the last few years that are now law that we can talk about and learn how their impact, or could impact, they may not, Pinole.
That'd be really helpful. Yeah,
going back to the League of California Cities, their publication, generally towards the end of the legislature sessions, they will have an article about all the legislation that was passed, that affects city planning, and it's a very interesting read to do that. But yeah, I agree. I'm not trying to substitute having a specific agenda item for us, but I find that very enlightening and very interesting whenever that issue comes out.
And we have a summary from a couple years ago that we can send out to in anticipation of the meeting. I think it's like all the bills from 2019, or there's 15 or something like that, and just has sort of a snippet about each one.
I would find that helpful. That'd be great.
Yeah.
You just got Zoom bombed.
I did.
Wonderful. Then just kind of along with that, there was in February, I guess, or January, February, we're going to be looking at a request for proposal for SB2 funds to start the general plan revision process, and along with that, the housing element update. Is that kind of starting to roll? Discussions happening along that line, or?
Oh yeah, we right now I'm working on the RFP right now. I'm also doing 2 applications for additional grant monies from the REIT, for lack of, I forget the whole project program, but it's the REIT program. The city has can get an additional about $120,000 to help with the housing element, and as well as that SB2 grant money. So because we had a lot of general fund money in those grants, and now we got other grants and we can supplement that, so we're not tearing up the general fund for $70,000. So I'm working on that right now. But yeah, the housing element, just kind of give you an update on that. ABAG through CCTA is putting together a bench, what they call a bench of consultants that do housing elements. And so basically what happens is that we put a scope together and we go through their bench of consultants, and then we'll be hiring a consultant to that to do the housing element. We'll probably hopefully be doing that, I want to say in the next, probably, they're putting the bench together right now, so it's going to take a couple of months. And so we'll have the money to be able to start that process and get that stuff going. So the RFP will be going, and you'll see a council item here on not the next meeting, but the meeting after, to apply for those grant monies for the REIT program. So we'll get that started. The SB2 stuff, yeah, I'm working on the RFP right now, and hopefully I'll have that done here in the next 2 or 3 weeks and get it out. My goal is to have it out by, I was hoping to get it out by the end of this month. It looks like it's probably going to be like the beginning of next month. But we're still working with it. I'm still working on it. But yeah.
Great. Thank you for that update.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, this is just a little thing. When we were considering item E2, and we received the memorandum, and we received yet another set of the Old Town guidelines. Yeah. This is like the third or fourth copy of this, maybe the second or third copy of this we received, and it was all copied, one-sided, etc. I think I'm just a little bit worried about the waste of paper.
Yeah, I mean, since we're continuing the item, we'll just have the staff report in there. We normally if we include exhibits in the staff report, because these are public records and public, we have to include them. So,
all right.
But I can do is under a separate cover or something of that nature. So I'm not printing them out, and I'll just say if they're located on the website, which they are located on the website. So if people want a copy of it, they can take a look at it.
Yeah, I think that would be great, because we don't need. I mean, because I'm recycling all those extra copies because I only need one copy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I try to do that. I try to, if we continue the item, then that's why I try. If we continue an item, I try to do that so that way I'm not passing out multiple items. So. But yeah, so the next item you won't see it. The next item you won't see them. It'll just say under a separate cover, and as long as they're documented and it's on the website, we'll be okay.
Excellent. And so, speaking of, we were going to get the Old Town Design Guidelines up on the website, and I still don't see them there. I went to the planning section and design guidelines, and I don't see anything there. So I'm not sure where they're housed or if they're just not there yet, and I don't see them.
I'll check with Justin tomorrow, because Justin comes in tomorrow, so I'll check with him. He's my website guru. So,
excellent. Yeah, I'm sure he needs to post them, but especially if they're going to be something that the community needs. And then finally, just to restate what the chair said, that this document that was the list of all the different projects was really helpful. Sure. And that's what we had asked for before. And so thank you for following through on that. Oh, yeah. And for Justin sending those out. So that's just a thank you. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And I want to clarify something. When we were talking about the tree mitigation fund, I made a comment about how I recently had some trees cut down, and I did a permit for that, which was $210. I just want to clarify that that it was part of the permit fees and not actually part of the mitigation process.
Right.
And good idea.
Right. Yeah. No. That's a totally different process.
That is a whole different process.
Yeah, whole different process.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions or would like to discuss something? If not, I will mention that our next Planning Commission meeting is February 22nd, 2021 at 7 p.m. And I'm going to yield the adjournment of this meeting to Ann because her mother passed away last week, and I would like to have her adjourn this meeting in the memory of her mother.
Thank you. I'd like to adjourn this meeting in the name of Judy Harder, who passed away from a COVID-accelerated stroke last week, and for all of those who have suffered losses in their family from COVID. We adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, Ann. Our sympathies go to you. The meeting is now adjourned.
All right.